welcome back. The lines are open. I want to remind you of the number. It's 663-2335, or you could leave a comment on our Facebook page, and we can get back to you. So as soon as the calls come in, we're gonna take them, and we'll move on. Kyle, this week we saw some controversy on CNC3 in relation with Akash Samaru.
Between co-hosts.
Maybe
we need to have some controversy among us to boost the ratings.
And then, but there was some controversy with Akash and the Morning Brew host, both co-hosts.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that situation?
Well, I'm not too. I mean, to be honest, I hadn't followed it that much.
Yeah.
I mean, both are obviously very talented media people.
On their own right.
In their own right, talented commentators. I think it was Miss Lagore who made a comment in relation to. There was a comparison being drawn between Donald Trump and the United National Congress. And essentially, I think that you had the UNC PRO at one point writing. Asking for an apology and what has happened there, and I remember thinking when I saw it, and I'm subject to correction, and caller who feels free to call in and comment on it. I remember thinking two things. I remember thinking, one, there's absolutely nothing wrong with anybody questioning the legitimacy of an election. That is part of a democracy. In fact, there are processes open to question. You have an election petition. If we were not allowed to challenge an election, why would you have an election petition?
Yeah.
The rule of law and the law prescribes certain ways that you go about challenging.
Correct.
The law also prescribes certain mechanisms and certain protections to ensure the integrity of an election. You have very detailed election rules, election day rules, election offenses. All of these things are important, and all of these things go to the fairness of an election.
Yeah, correct.
Right? So there's absolutely nothing wrong with anybody, any leader, criticizing the conduct of an election, or challenging an election, or criticizing the fairness of an election. Absolutely nothing wrong. So in that regard, to simply say that it is wrong, and I think that is where the CNC3 host was going, that a narrative was being pushed that we should not accept the elections and whatever. There's a distinction. There's absolutely nothing wrong in criticizing an election. I think after everything is said and done, every mature politician has to move on and say, well, okay, now that all of the challenges are over, all of our thing, we have to accept the results. And that brings a sense of calm to the society and a peaceful transition or continuity in governance. And I think that's the distinction there. So insofar as there was any criticism of the UNC or the political leader of the United National Congress or the party in criticizing the election, I have no difficulty in criticizing an election. I mean, I could declare an interest. I was a lawyer who wrote letters during the election on behalf of the United National Congress, challenging certain aspects of the electoral process, and I could declare that interest. I have no shame that I'm a lawyer. That's what I do. And there were certain parts that I felt the EBC fell short. We were able to correct some of those in Sawa Barrett area with the shifting of polling stations, and that would have led to an unfair process. We got it corrected before, and that is because we were willing to challenge. That is what a democracy is about. That's what a legal system is about. So that there's no issue. The second thing I thought was that there were calls for the host to resign, and I think there were rumors that she would resign. Now, insofar as people are expressing strong views, I think that's what that program is about. Certainly, I'm not going to resign if I give a strong view here. Not that I'm a professional TV host. Journalist. Stefan and I are making this up as we go along to some extent. We're really on extempo where we have no experience in the media, but insofar as we express strong views, don't expect us to back down. We may change our minds if you come and you tell us something else. And that's what a democracy is about. So insofar as she expressed strong political views or strong views either way of criticism,
to call for her resignation was a bit
it is disproportionate. It is wrong. You can't be challenging and attacking people because they express views. The way to deal with it is to go on the program the next morning and challenge her.
We have a call. Go ahead. Caller.
Hello.
Hi.
Good day.
Am I on to the section 1 panel?
Yes, section 1, not section 3.
I have a question for the esteemed panel, but I note that it doesn't concern what was recently discussed, and it concerns something you discussed just before the break.
That's okay.
With respect to the exemption policy.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my question concerns basically the lack of more legal challenges to this exemption policy. I remember that Justice Budu Singh had granted permission to a seaman who was out of the country to come to judicially challenge the decision of the Minister of National Security not to allow him back into the country. And I'm not sure where that went because that decision hasn't come out as yet. But since then, I haven't seen any aggressive legal challenges by the fraternity, and I was just wondering what can account for this lack of challenge, especially when there are such dire consequences for the persons who are outside the jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So that's my question.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your caller.
I mean, I suppose to some extent you have to have, well, first of all, people who are abroad are abroad.
Yeah, correct.
So it's very difficult to conference with attorneys, get instruction. I mean, that's part of it. I think somehow, somewhere along the line, and it's a wider problem. So let me put it like this. It's strange because Trinidad generally has a culture of litigation.
Yeah.
We run to court to challenge everything, as long as we know that. Somewhere along the line, it became morally unacceptable to file challenges, to question the government's handling of this COVID-19.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, we got the misconception, in my view, that a legal challenge or lawyers taking challenges or challenging this COVID regulation and the COVID management and decisions was somehow wrong. That somehow when you file a legal challenge, you were endangering citizens, you were attacking national security, you were challenging the government at a time when we all should just fall in line. And I want to say that's a very dangerous thing. And to answer the caller's question directly, I think people have been afraid to come out. Of course, lawyers need clients. Stefan and I would file a challenge tomorrow morning, but I mean, this is not advertised. And let me just take that out one time, right? But the point is, you have to have litigants to make this challenge. Yes, you could have public interest litigants, but rarely for something like this, you want people who are aggrieved, who are willing to file a challenge. And I think somewhere along the line, people became afraid or they felt that they would be shunned. And there was a very big propaganda movement, I noticed, where people were essentially coming from, oh, you know, you're filing case for this and that. I remember when...
It's not only filing, you know. Anytime you went against the administration's handling of COVID-19, I saw in different circles on social media, you were seen to be deemed unpatriotic.
Yeah, unpatriotic.
You seemed as though, because you went against some of the handling, and we keep mentioning Lord Sumption in the UK, we mentioned on our last show, who has been an advocate against advocate in terms of the COVID-19 regulations and the effect of on their democracy in England. And what happened in Trinidad, in my respectful view, was in the early days of COVID-19, so March, April, May, we were all in a kind of trance per se. We were all scared. We didn't know. It was an unknown virus. We didn't know what was going on. We went into a lockdown, but after we came out of that, what happened was we started to hear from different circles, once you have that level of challenge, it seemed as though you were deemed unpatriotic, and that is very unfortunate.
Yeah, well, it's wrong.
It's wrong.
It's absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
A legal challenge by a citizen to any law is within his right. It's part of your democracy, and it ensures that the government is acting according to the law. At the end of the day, what you don't want is a society that is governed by the arbitrary whims and fancies of an executive, meaning it can't be that a government minister comes and simply says what he wants you to do in the name of fighting coronavirus, and you comply, and essentially you whittle away your rights.
Exactly.
All citizens understand and accept, and I think most of us are responsible to say, well, yes, the government has to take harsh measures to deal with this virus. But that does not mean that we should absolutely surrender our rights, surrender all our human rights, especially this issue with the exemption. That does not mean that we should sit back and accept a government whimsically allowing people in and out, arbitrary, allowing people in any country as they see fit, vice versa, as you said. That can't be right in any society. And in those circumstances, it is upon us and is incumbent upon all citizens, all politicians, all democratically minded people to speak up and come forward. And whether that takes the form of legal challenge, Whether there are litigants who want to come forward and make those challenges, that's a different scenario.
Yeah.
But, and the caller raised, and I suppose the caller was sort of hinting on that as well. Why isn't there more robust? We have a robust legal culture. We have very brave and strong lawyers.
Yeah, correct.
But why haven't the challenges been coming fast and furious to ensure that this law is reformed and tested?
Yeah.
And is there a type of judicial conservatism taking place?
Well, it definitely is.
Yeah.
Because of the situation, because of COVID-19,
Yeah.
you have that conservative, people are more reluctant, because of the perception of being unpatriotic and being against the government. And because look, let's not mix any matters. COVID-19 is a very serious situation. When we went into lockdown, we were averaging about 3 or 4 tested positive cases a day.
Yeah.
Right now, we're averaging, about 12, 15?
Yeah, but the oftentimes the catalyst or the reason for people losing rights and the reason for descending into a dictatorship is because of some national emergency issue.
That's the point.
People who are in power get comfortable when there is a national emergency because it's easier to govern.
Yeah.
People are afraid.
Yeah.
They don't do things that they ordinarily do. They don't challenge you. They're willing to let you get away with a lot more. I mean, a perfect example of that, Stefan, is the reduction of time in the parliament speaking time.
That's the point. Yeah. That's a very serious issue.
It came to being during Corona because you wanted to limit the amount of time parliamentarians were spending in parliament and that sort of thing. I think it was cut down from an hour to 45 minutes.
To 20 minutes.
And now it's down to 20 minutes. This evidence bill that we went through, I don't have the bill, but the bill that we went through, the evidence bill and that is coming up on Tuesday, and the very lengthy bills. What can you really contribute to a bill in 20 minutes?
We sat down here on live television
with an interview that took 20 minutes.
That took
and
more
we
than
barely
20 minutes.
Scratched the surface.
We didn't even get into the regulations. We didn't get into the sections.
Yeah.
How are we to expect our duly elected representatives to go ahead and go through the different regulations? The evidence bill is a very serious piece of legislation. We will hopefully touch on that next week. And how are they to do this? How are they to come on and see what we have to do?
But correct. And the point being that somewhere along the line, we allowed and we accepted as a population that our elected representatives should only spend 20 minutes talking about policy and legislation that affects our lives. And that can't be right. Yeah. At one point in time, it was felt, I think it was very long, and it was cut down to an hour, and I thought, well, that was pretty optimum.
Yeah, that's fine.
Now it's gone down to almost 20 minutes, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
when you hear the leader of the opposition, or when you hear a main speaker on the opposition, you want to hear them for a significant period of time, because they have things to discuss. That first you would start off with the policy, the overarching view, why this legislation is necessary, is this legislation necessary, what happens in other jurisdictions, and then you get into some of the provisions
of the bill. Those who are piloting the bills,
the independent senators,
and then you have the independent senators, the ones who are piloting the bill from the administration point of view. You have to ensure that there is robust, and that is what Parliament is there for. It's the seat of democracy.
Well, it goes to the principle of parliamentary scrutiny and parliamentary oversight.
Yeah.
What type of scrutiny and oversight are you really having when members of parliament are allowed very limited and small amounts of time to scrutinize and discuss a bill? The ultimate scrutiny is debate. And if you have very limited debate, parliament is essentially just become a clearinghouse.
That's the point.
It's just become a port of entry for the Attorney General's mandate, because he could lay now, whereas, you would have to go through maybe 1 or 2 bills. Theoretically, he could lay any number of bills, and you're already in the habit of passing these miscellaneous bills.
Well, let's not mix matters. We watch the Parliament channel. We're the weird group that watches Parliament channels late into the night.
Yeah.
And we see even recently 3 or 4 bills being
debated because of the limited speaking time.
And that's the thing. I mean,
you're able to clear large amounts, and that isn't good.
That isn't good.
Legislation is not. You're not engaging retail sale. Yeah. You're not trying to sell as much products as you want in a fast amount of time. It's not a flea market. Parliament is a serious seat. It is the seat of democracy, and it is the bulwark of arbitrariness, bulwark against arbitrariness. By that, what I mean is, it is the institution that protects citizens from any type of oppressive measures that a government or anybody in charge may want to impose upon them. And one of the ways that you do that is through debate.
Yeah.
You take them to task in the parliament.
Yep.
You debate them, and so that when the population see that you are passionate about debating matters and that you are passionately objecting to those matters, you build that type of coalition against those measures in the public domain. And it's very important. It's not going and selling car. It's not going and selling clothes. It's not, it's not just the more you get through is the better you're functioning.
Yeah,
that's
not
how
what
it works.
That's not what parliament
is. It's
is.
the same with our court. Because our court is able to give 100 judgments in a period of time, that doesn't mean that the court is functioning better than a court that is able to give 20 judgments. Yeah. It's about the quality of the judgment that comes out.
And
therefore it's about the quality of the legislation. You can't get quality legislation. I suspect that all of this 20-minute things that we get in now, later down the line, in about 4 or 5 years, lawyers are going to exploit loopholes in all pieces of the in a lot of the legislation that's coming out of Parliament now, because you didn't take the time and you didn't listen to what people were telling you in relation to this legislation. Yeah. And what could you really say in 20 minutes?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. You didn't have mature reflection in the Parliament during a debate because of this limited time. So it's something that we have to look at.
Yeah, it is something we definitely have to look at. Talking about Mr. Holler actually just messaged our production manager and said, time is up.
Time is up.
We have to move on. What we'll do is we will put our comments on the bill on our Facebook page. We'll attempt to try to do it this week.
Yeah.
And hopefully, as we say, you guys could put forward your thoughts.
What you want to discuss. Views, ideas, opinions, videos.
Videos for our soapbox segment. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to our soapbox segment today. It was a very lengthy and detailed program. So we're going to sign off today. Thank you for having us. Thank you to all of our sponsors. We want to ensure that, again, sending all your videos. Let's move forward, and hopefully we'll see you guys, God willing, next week Sunday on Section 1.
Join us next week.